Olivia Wilson, underestimated by her wealthy, domineering family, secretly builds a billion-dollar consulting empire, Summit Solutions, while maintaining the facade of a low-level administrative assistant. Over a decade, she quietly undermines her family's predatory business tactics. At a climactic family reunion and subsequent boardroom meeting, she reveals herself as the CEO, humiliating her relatives and reshaping the power dynamics. Her victory is not just personal but ethical, elevating others in the process. The chandelier's crystal droplets refracted the soft glow of the grand hall, scattering light across the Wilson mansion's polished marble floors. I lingered near the edges, a quiet shadow in a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, my black dress a deliberate choice, invisible, unremarkable. The air smelled of expensive perfume and entitlement, an aroma I knew intimately, like being constantly observed and judged. Aunt Patricia's voice cut through the hum of laughter. "Olivia, still at that little firm of yours? Summit something." I smiled faintly, raising my champagne glass. "Summit Solutions, yes," I said, calm, letting her dismissive tone wash over me. Cousin Ethan, fresh from celebrating his latest promotion, leaned in with a grin that masked superiority. "Come on, Liv, let me set you up with something more substantial. Real work, you know." I thought of my real office, a sleek glass tower downtown, my name nowhere in public filings, yet controlling billions in assets. My secret smile was hidden behind the rim of the glass. That night, amidst the clinking of champagne flutes and the whispers of gossip, I made a promise to myself. They would see me, not as the invisible niece or the underestimated assistant, but as the architect of a quiet empire they never suspected. Years ago, fresh out of business school, I pitched my revolutionary restructuring idea in this very house. Laughter greeted me. Uncle Robert scoffed, "Leave that to the big firms. Start in the mailroom, like the rest." Everyone else, he meant my male cousins, of course. Women were either decoration or subordinate. That dismissal stung. But in that sting, opportunity hid. I rented a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant, my savings barely enough for rent. My first client teetered on bankruptcy. Major firms had refused them. I spent months untangling the mess, realigning debts, processes, and management. 6 months later, they thrived. Word spread quietly. Summit Solutions became the silent savior of failing businesses, my name never spoken aloud. My relatives' predatory acquisitions? I quietly blocked them from within, watching them fail while Summit grew. 10 years later, I remained the unambitious niece, while the empire I built quietly reshaped the business landscape. And now, here I was, champagne in hand, pretending to be small, listening to the laughter, the superiority, the oblivion. Every smirk, every raised eyebrow, every condescending comment was a reminder of how perfectly I had played my part. Because tomorrow, in the boardroom where I had once served coffee, everything would change. The room shimmered with tension as Aunt Patricia leaned toward Ethan, whispering a joke meant to sting. I stood against the far wall, my fingers brushing the stem of my glass, feeling the weight of years compressed into a single evening. The laughter sounded hollow. None of them suspected the real stakes. I thought of Williams Manufacturing. 3 months ago, their CEO had called Summit Solutions in desperation. They were facing Uncle Robert's hostile takeover. I had drawn up a plan, strategic and meticulous, designed to not just save the company, but to position Summit in control of the outcome. The irony that my family had underestimated me, never realizing the threat under their noses, was delicious. Cousin James, checking his phone, fumed at some invisible slight. My mind cataloged their weaknesses: entitlement, arrogance, impatience. These were my weapons. I drifted near the buffet, sipping sparkling water, observing. My cousin Ethan laughed at someone else's joke, still unaware of the empire I had quietly built. I could almost see him mentally patting himself on the back, blind to the shadow looming over his ambitions. My thoughts flicked to Summit's team. Each carefully chosen employee was loyal, discreet, brilliant. None had leaked a whisper, none had betrayed the secret. Their success was a reflection of careful cultivation and trust, like a garden nurtured in darkness. I glanced at the grand clock on the mantel. Tomorrow's merger discussion would be the culmination of a decade of strategy. Wilson Ventures would walk in expecting compliance. They would find themselves facing the one person they had dismissed for years, armed with legal leverage, financial dominance, and strategic foresight. As a distant laugh rang out, I allowed a small smile. The thrill of anticipation was a quiet, sharp joy. The empire I had built had been hidden not for vanity but for precision. Tomorrow, the masquerade ended. The morning air smelled faintly of rain as I stepped into Summit Solutions' glass tower. My black dress was gone. A deep navy-tailored suit replaced it. Power was a color, I reminded myself, a shape, a presence. Maya, my assistant, met me with a knowing smile. "They're here early," she said, handing me a tablet. Uncle Robert seems anxious. The conference room was a tableau of arrogance and entitlement. Uncle Robert sat at the head, Ethan and James flanking him, Aunt Patricia perched like a hawk. Across the table, Mr. Harrison from Williams Manufacturing shifted uncomfortably. I let the doors swing open. Silence fell. "I'm the CEO of Summit Solutions," I said, stepping forward. The words landed like a strike. Faces froze, mouths opened, closed, gasps caught in throats. Ethan sputtered. James dropped his pen. Aunt Patricia's composure faltered. Uncle Robert's jaw tightened until I thought it might crack. "Maya distributed contracts. These are the terms," I said. "Summit Solutions will approve the merger on our conditions. Decline, and we'll acquire Wilson Ventures stock ourselves." I watched their panic bloom. The empire they had believed untouchable now hinged on me, the overlooked niece, the quiet assistant. 10 years of planning, restraint, and patience crystallized in this moment. The room erupted in chaos. Uncle Robert's voice thundered. Ethan stood stiff as a board. James frantically checked his calculations. Aunt Patricia's manicure no longer mattered. Her pride faltered. I remained seated, calm. My hands moved only to gesture at projections, spreadsheets, and evidence of Summit's growth. "These are the companies you attempted to acquire last year," I said. "Peterson Electronics, Maritime Shipping, Davidson Group. Each saved from your predatory practices by my firm." The gravity of the decade-long deception settled over them. Every smirk they had offered me, every insult, every dismissal, they had contributed to this moment. I could see realization dawn on Ethan's face. All those years, he had underestimated me. All those meetings, all those derisive comments, they had been meaningless in the shadow of true strategy. "Why now?" Uncle Robert rasped. "Because now, Summit Solutions is strong enough," I replied. I could have revealed myself sooner, but I waited until the leverage was perfect. Until ethical business could triumph over greed. Maya stepped forward with more contracts. "Final merger terms," she said. Uncle Robert took them, trembling. "You've thought of everything," he whispered, defeat in his eyes. I smiled, not in malice, but in satisfaction. Years of patience, of planning, of quiet diligence had brought justice. Not vengeance, but restoration. The board members, previously loyal to Wilson Ventures, nodded in acknowledgement. The message was clear. Summit Solutions commanded respect, influence, and moral authority. The press headlines screamed, "Secret CEO revealed," "Billion-dollar empire built in secret," family messages flooded my inbox, apologies, astonishment, offers to collaborate. I ignored them. Summit Solutions' real victories were quieter, young women inspired, companies thriving ethically, a legacy built without sacrificing principles. That evening, I sipped coffee from my own chain, the same blend Aunt Patricia had never imagined I could afford. I allowed myself a moment to reflect. 10 years of invisibility had led to a visible, lasting empire. I had shown them and the world that power isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like patience, strategy, and quiet, deliberate action. And sometimes it tastes like perfectly brewed coffee.